Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around I'm doing TV shows. Just a whole bunch of TV shows that I've got that I like, that I recommend, that I think you should have in your collection in some way or another. They're wide-ranging. Some of them are strange, some of them are cool, some of them are deep-cut hidden gems, and some aren't. So let's get started with one that I knew from my childhood. And if I don't hit the microphone, it works a lot better. This one is from the 1950s, a TV series I picked up a 3-disc box set of. And the interesting thing is this is an English TV series from the 50s. They had all sorts of guest stars at the start of their career, people like Robert Shaw, Michael Caine, Wilfred Bramble, and Donald Pleasance. And it is William Tell with Conrad Phillips.
Well, what a day when the apple fell for Pell in Switzerland. Come away, fell to the mountainside, look down to the pass where the tyrants ride.
I love this TV series. I loved it when I was a kid, but knew nothing about Swiss history until I saw William Tell. And this one is just such fun. Kind of like The Adventures of Robin Hood was, the one with Richard Green. I'm glad I got this one. I probably should try to find The Adventures of Robin Hood as well and add that to the collection. I kind of love any television hero who has a crossbow. There's just something innately groovy about crossbows. And this one is great. Now on the back you can see some of the artwork. It's fairly fine there, but you can see the kind of gear you've got in this. And I enjoyed it at the time. I've watched a couple of these episodes so far, and they're still fun. The plots are interesting. The character actors they get in are always fun. It's a reflection also of a certain time in television making when the budgets weren't enormous, but they had English countryside to use and locations. They had a few ox carts and a whole bunch of hay around and a few old buildings, and that's pretty much all you needed for these series. And William Tell is one of my favourites in that particular genre, along with Richard Green's Robin Hood. There was also Richard the Lionheart. So there are a whole bunch of these mythologising the past of England kind of TV series, which sold well in Australia as well as in England. And again, it's kind of not telling the truth about history, but playing up the pretty bits and zhuzhing it all up to make it look like it was a cool time to live in, and forgetting that people died at the age of 30. Then we go across to Japan for an Americanized version of a Japanese anime, which is still on Tubi, because I occasionally watch episodes of it on Tubi. It's from around the turn of the millennium, and people who are now in their 20s and 30s swear by this series because they watched it when they were kids. I watched it when I was quite a mature adult because, well, on second thoughts, an immature adult. This is season 1 of the Americanized version of this anime. They did cut certain things out of it because it was supposed to be shown to kids, but they still have some edgy stuff in it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 1. This one's a really interesting production too, because there's the box and it's slightly ratchet because I've had it for 20 years. Inside, all of the episodes are in this. A zip-up folder, which I kind of like. It holds the discs well, and there's a lot of discs in there. There's 15 discs in it, and there's a booklet about it as well. This is one of the first box sets that had a booklet. There we go, Seto Kaiba the bad guy, Yugi and Joey, all this kind of stuff. It's a very over-the-top and bombastic kind of series with lots of drama in it. It's about a card game where people have dueling monsters in the cards, and they're actually linked to ancient Egyptian gods. But I like that package. Got some really interesting animation in it. It's a lot of fun, and people half my age love Yu-Gi-Oh! And so do I. So there's that. Bit of anime, bit of historical adventure. We'll move on to comedy. I've got a comedy here for you. I did do this one in the hall recently, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's so good. Chance in a Million with Simon Callow and Brenda Blethyn. I've got 3 series of this that I picked up on eBay for ridiculously little money. It's basically about a guy called Tom Chance, played by Simon Callow. And all through Tom's life, extraordinary 1 in a million chances happen all the time in his life. And he just accepts the fact that incredibly rare coincidences are just the way things have been his entire life. And he meets a woman called Alison and they start dating. And Alison can't believe all of these extraordinary coincidences that happen in Tom's life. Now, there are 6 episodes in each of these because it was one of those English comedy series that didn't run 30 episodes. It just ran 6 episodes a season, and it's a lot of fun. And this one's got an early appearance by Stephen Fry at the 3rd season. So there's that. But from the 1980s, but it's good writing, it's absurd comedy, ridiculous premise, but it kind of works. Brenda Blethyn and Simon Cowell have a nice rapport playing the star-crossed lovers in that. Did cut one, but if you can find a copy of any of the 3 seasons, you're going to have a good time with it. Next up, we've got an English TV series that went from about 2007 to 2011. I've got 3 of the seasons here, and I know I've got the 4th one. It's a science fiction series which rolled off from a whole bunch of nature documentaries that were done about dinosaurs, and they developed computer-generated technology to generate the dinosaurs. Then they decided to go fictional and create Primeval, which is a groovy premise. A whole bunch of time anomalies start occurring in the UK. Creatures from the past and the future come through, and a whole bunch of zoologists and troubleshooters have to deal with them and get them back to the time anomaly so they can chuck them back where they belong. So it's a time travel premise, but it's got a lot of dinosaurs and giant megafauna mammals and all sorts of dangerous creatures coming through into England and messing things up. It's a fun series to watch. Computer-generated effects are pretty good for the time. There's the 2nd season there, 3rd season there, and then the 4th season. There are 5 seasons in all. During the 5 seasons, they did have changes of actors, as actors went on to other gigs and got better offers. But Primeval was a lot of fun to watch. Great concept, cool dinosaurs, intricate plots with the characters. It just worked. Even though the 5th season was a little bit tying up all the loose ends kind of thing. Still great to see pterodactyls flying over London and stuff like that. All that kind of groovy stuff that they suddenly were able to do with the available special effects technology. Next up, we've got an early TV series of Simon Pegg, Sally Phillips and Julian Rind-Tutt. It's set in the 1960s Hippies. Hippies is a cool series that mocks the 1960s wonderfully. It only runs, how many episodes? Doesn't tell me. But it's about a guy called Ray Purbs, played by Simon Pegg, who's the editor of an alternative magazine in 1960s London. And he produces it with the help of a whole bunch of his friends. And the interesting thing is, inside this one, you get a copy of his newspaper, which is called Mouth. So that's a nice little addition. Not the best printing, it's on paper basically. And I think there's another one here. Yeah, there's some more of it there, which is kind of mad. And the episodes are very funny. There's this one episode where Eleanor Bron comes along as a plaster caster, and Ray gets involved with her plaster casting the gentleman parts of various celebrities. But yeah, it's fun, it's funny. In some ways it's traditional comedy with a gormless, useless protagonist in unusual situations. But it's still fun. And if you can find a copy of Hippies, you're going to have a good time with it, particularly if you're familiar with the history of the 1960s. Let's go back to the 1950s. This one just came out, and I did it in a haul, but I wanted to underline it. It's out from Viavision. They've just put it out because it's an Australian TV series which had an American protagonist, which is unfortunate. Whiplash, with Peter Graves.
Whiplash, 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 whiplash.
Set in 1851 in Australia, Peter Graves plays Christopher Cobb, a real-life character who invented the Cobb & Co. stagecoach lines that went between Australia's cities and the rural areas, particularly during the gold rush. Filmed in black and white, filmed on fairly low budgets. It was an Australian production, but they got an American star in for the name value. All sorts of Australian character actors of the time, most of whose names you won't know. I'm glad they put that out because this kind of stuff isn't anywhere on any streaming service. It isn't anywhere on any terrestrial TV service or what they call linear television. And there are a whole bunch. How many episodes are there? 34 episodes, which is pretty good going. They're around half an hour each. This came out at a time when there wasn't too much drama and stuff being done in Australia about Australia's history. There were some series put out, but for the most part, Australia was doing sport and variety television for the local content. There were a few dramas and things, but this kind of adventure stuff really started hitting in the late 50s into the 1960s. And Whiplash was one of the early ones. Television only came to Australia in 1956, so this is way early in the history of Australian television. And if you've got an interest in that, you might want to pick up Whiplash. According to this, it doesn't tell me that it's region coded at all. Oh, yes, it does. Region 4. So you'll need your multi-region player to watch this. It's on DVD, but you might want to check it out. This next one's a deep cut, and I found it on eBay on DVD. It's an alternate universe English TV series from the 1970s about an England where the Germans took over during World War II. And things have settled down, and the Germans are basically domesticated the English. And it's a miniseries with Kenneth More starring. It's called An Englishman's Castle. It's about a guy who writes a television series about wartime England in this German-ruled England of the 1970s. It's a soap opera basically about the Blitz and how London survives the Blitz. And he suddenly finds himself questioning the status quo in this alternative 1970s. When he finds out that his girlfriend is actually Jewish and is hiding her Jewishness for survival reasons, he suddenly questions everything he believes about England and about the war and about the lies told in society since then. Really interesting little series. It also stars Kathleen Byron, who was in Black Narcissus. You might want to check that one out if you can find a copy of it. If you like science fiction, if you like counterfactual narratives and alternate universes, this is one to find. This one's from the 60s and 70s, went from 1968 to 1970, and it's a short series of adaptations of classic fantastic literature, and it's called Mystery and Imagination. It does Uncle Silas, Frankenstein, which they misspelled on the cover, Dracula, The Suicide Club, Sweeney Todd, and The Curse of the Mummy. Now, this has got all sorts of great actors. It's got Denholm Elliott, Ian Holm in the Frankenstein adaptation, Patrick Moore, Freddie Jones. They also do a few other things as well. They do Casting the Runes, which is the story upon which Curse of the Demon was based. So basically, there's a whole bunch of television adaptations of fantastic and fortunately public domain stories from the 19th and early 20th century. And it's great. The adaptations are fantastically well done. The acting is totally on point. Some of the episodes are in colour, some are in black and white. There's some of the artwork from it. There's Ian Holm in the Frankenstein adaptation there. This one you might want to pick up if you can find a copy of it. Yeah, it's an interesting one. And a lot of this stuff is really hard to find if you can't find it on physical media. You may well find it on a stray torrent if you're very, very, very lucky. But picking up this stuff is really useful. Next one I've got the only bootleg. And if somebody can give me an English dubbed or English subtitled version of this or steer me in the direction of it, I'd be appreciative. It's the German Star Trek from the 1960s, essentially, Space Patrol Orion. The complete series. Only 7 episodes. And it's about a future where there's a base under the ocean and Earth is being invaded by a group of aliens they call the Frogs. And Orion's one of the space vessels which is protecting the Earth from aliens and other threats. So it's very much like a Star Trek, but in German, by Germans, with some really funky special effects. And a banging soundtrack by Peter Thomas. I've got the soundtrack album, I've got the original soundtrack album. There's the back cover. This has got such a distinct look about it and such a distinct style, and yet the plots work nicely. They've got all sorts of special effects which are really ambitious, and to be honest with you, some of the special effects they have in Space Patrol Orion shit on Star Trek. You might want to find that one and check it out if you can. Really groovy. It's got a cult following in Europe now, and rightly so, because it's just bonkers and endlessly entertaining. Like I said, this is a bootleg, but I will try to find a proper copy of it for my long-term archive. Next one's a mini-series that was on ABC in America, produced by Oliver Stone, written by Bruce Wagner, a very fine writer who particularly wrote well about Hollywood. James Belushi, Dana Delaney, Robert Loggia, Kim Cattrall, Angie Dickinson, Nick Mancuso's in there as well. There's a cameo by William Gibson in this, Wild Palms, which is a crazy conspiracy theory cyberpunk TV miniseries. In total it runs 286 minutes. But it's got all sorts of people in it as well. Brad Dourif turns up in there, Robert Morse. They've got so much in it. It's from 1993. The episodes were directed by Catherine Bigelow, Keith Gordon, Petty Hewitt, and Phil Giuano. This one is a cult favourite of mine. I've got the soundtrack album to this one as well by Ryuki Sakamoto. Really great soundtrack. And there's some really good use of 1960s and 1950s pop music reinterpreted for a series. It's on 2 discs from Kino Lorber, this one. I did have an Australian DVD copy of this, but I went to the Blu-ray for this one. It's Region A. You've got to see this one if you haven't. It is mind-blowing fun. Special effects are 1993 television, but the plot line and the craziness and the different conspiracies fighting against each other in a futuristic 2007 AD Los Angeles are really interesting. Next up, we've got one that people have asked me about on the channel. The 1970s finale to Quatermass. Nigel Neal's Quatermass, starring John Mills. This is the kind of culmination of Nigel Neal's fear of youth culture in the 60s and 70s, where an elderly Quatermass, played by John Mills, finds out that younger people are being influenced by something from outer space. It stars Simon McCorkadale, Barbara Kellerman's in there as well. Written by Nigel Neal, directed by Piers Haggard, who did Blood and Satan's Claw. And there's also viewing notes written for the series in a booklet. Now, I know there are a lot of people who watch this channel who are mad keen on the 50s and 60s iterations of Quatermass. But in that case, you should get this one. This is a UK release from Fremantle International. It's not my favourite Quatermass. I kind of like Quatermass in the Pit. I liked the movie and the television adaptations from the 1950s, except I didn't like Brian Donlevy. But if you got them, you got to have this. Like I said, not my favourite, because Nigel Neal's obsession with the faults of 1960s and 70s youth culture kind of make it a little too didactic and take away a little bit from what he's trying to say. But you need to have that one in your collection. While we're in that kind of a zeitgeist, TV series from the 1970s. It's got episodes 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11 from Series 1. All episodes from Series 2, and episodes 4, 6, and 12 from Series 3, because they didn't keep the originals. Doomwatch, about an organisation which advises the UK government on technological threats to civilization. That's the bottom line of it. And there's some freaky things in here. There's hyper-intelligent rats are in one episode. There's a problem with genetic engineering and chemical waste and nuclear weapons and global warming and terrorist plots and industrial sabotage, all sorts of things. Doomwatch is a really great watch. The series warns us of all the things that have actually happened. There's a lot of stuff in here where you go, yeah, that happened. Yeah, that's on the verge of happening. And yeah, that happened. That's happening now. All of that kind of stuff. Doomwatch. There was a short miniseries around 1990s with another Doomwatch story in it. But these are the original television episodes. Totally worth it. Should be in your collection. The last one I got for you is from the current decade. Surprisingly, I do like some modern stuff. And I had to go all the way to America to get this. Well, actually, you use the internet, of course. And I got it with some Amazon credits I had, fortunately, because it cost me a lot of money. If you like Columbo, you got to like Poker Face. This thing is just crazy. Natasha Lyonne plays a woman called Charlie, who can tell when people are lying. And she ends up being on the run, kind of like Richard Kimball in The Fugitive, and gets involved with a whole bunch of people doing crimes. She can tell when people are lying, and she gets involved in situations when she's on the run from a Las Vegas casino owner. She basically Columbos each of these crimes and each of these situations. Terrific guest stars on this, which is one of the great things about it. You've got Hong Chow in there, Tim Meadows, Adrian Brody, Chloe Sevigny, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ron Perlman, Tim Blake Nelson, Benjamin Bratt. The guest stars on this really land fantastically well. And of course it comes to us from Ryan Johnson, who did Glass Onion and Knives Out, amongst many, many other things. There's a new season of this being produced, and Natasha Lyonne was never better than in this. Her Charlie is just a fantastic character who is cursed with the ability to see truth and lies. And it's just incredibly well written. The mysteries are interesting. The characters are interesting. Her story is interesting, and you've got to see this if you haven't already. It was on a streaming service, but streaming services being the ephemeral things they are, it's always better to have a physical copy, and I'm very glad I've got the first season of Poker Face. And when the second season comes out, I will move heaven and earth to get a physical copy as well. So that's what I got for you at the moment. A whole bunch of TV series I recommend. There will be, as much as possible, links to where you can buy these series if they're available on Amazon, because I get Amazon affiliate links and they give me a little kickback if somebody buys something and I buy more discs with it. So those ones, it was good to just kind of remind myself they're there, and I'm going to put them on the coffee table and just dip into episodes when I feel like it. I like them all. I recommend them all. You should check them all out. So that's it for this time around. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Tell me which one of these you liked and what you would add to this collection. You can also support the channel by becoming a channel member, or else by becoming a patron at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, I've got the Wednesday video, and I've got some really interesting ideas for that, which I'm halfway through. So until then, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. Watch some TV. What's streaming? What do you call it if it's not streaming? Do you still call it TV? Who knows? Anyway, until then, I'll catch you next time.